Tell us about Brock Bowers from Georgia.
Love the kid. I mean, he's probably a field when you talk about safe picks in the top 10. How can you miss on this guy? There's zero bust factor here. Brock Bowers is going to have a heck of an NFL career. And what I love about this kid, the first 2 years, his impactful ability as a freshman, 56 catches, almost a 16-yard average and 13 touchdowns. Then 63 catches, 15-yard average and 7 touchdowns. That's 20 touchdowns his first 2 years. And then he had the tightrope surgery. He got hurt mid-season around October 14th against Vanderbilt. The 2 prior games to that game against Auburn and Kentucky, he had 15 catches for a 19-yard average and 2 touchdowns. When he was healthy at Georgia, didn't matter if it was Stetson Bennett. Those first 2 years, they're winning a national title. He's a key entity in that offense. Go back to games they had to come back in. Remember that national title game when we thought they were going to be challenged in the semifinal game before they blew out TCU? Remember that game against Ohio State when Ohio State had a 38-24 lead starting the fourth quarter? Brock Bowers was for Stetson Bennett that key go-to guy. Carson Beck takes over. He's the exact same player. October 14th, singled when that injury occurred. Then he had the tightrope surgery, came back from that field. The Chargers, you think about this offense, how tight end centric it's going to be with Jim Harbaugh. Justin Herbert, great quarterback, right? Now you get a tight end, a guy you can move around and get those matchup advantages. We saw Travis Kelce yesterday, right? What was he, 11 for 11?
Yeah.
They couldn't cover the guy in the first half, right? Well, Brock Bowers for Jim Harbaugh, who has always had tight ends wherever he's been. John Harbaugh, same thing here with the Baltimore Ravens. Tight end position so critical to the success of that offense. And Brock Bowers, to me, one of the best players in this draft. I think he goes as high as I have him in that mock draft. I think he could go as high as 5 to the LA Chargers.
Yeah, Mel, when I think about some of the superpower skills for Brock Bowers, there are a couple that I think maybe come to mind more so than other players. One is the hands. I mean, this guy might have the best hands of any pass catcher in the entire draft. Catches within his radius, catches outside of his radius, catches in traffic like you just saw right there if you are watching this live on TV or on YouTube. Catches that he is making that are bad passes on throws in which there are run after catch opportunities. It felt like the ball never hit the ground when it's thrown in the vicinity of Brock Bowers. And on top of that, Brock Bowers is an amazing run after catch player. Now, he might run 0.2 of a second slower than some of the wide receivers that we're going to discuss here in just a few moments at the Combine. And yet he is just this incredibly efficient run after catch player, right? Like, it feels like whenever he receives the ball, it's as if he has already mapped out the play ahead of him before he's actually got the football in his hands. Incredibly efficient, so good after the catch. Brock Bowers is the real deal. Can't imagine he's going to fall too far in the draft. But what I want to ask you, Mel, is like historical context here. A couple of years ago, Kyle Pitts goes 4th overall, highest drafted tight end, I believe, in the Super Bowl era. I think the last time anybody was even close was Vernon Davis to the 49ers out of Maryland about 20 years ago. If you were to compare and contrast Kyle Pitts and Brock Bowers, not just in terms of skill set, Mel, but maybe more so in terms of overall grade, are they in the same tier, or could Brock Bowers be even above where Kyle Pitts was?
He'll be right there, Field. And I think we always look at the NFL and say, okay, who are the tight ends? Say, well, why don't you wait a little bit and find a Travis Kelce in the 3rd round, or find a George Kittle out of Iowa in the 5th round, or find a Mark Andrews down the line a bit coming out of Oklahoma, not even in the first 2 rounds of the draft. So you look at that and say, let's wait a little bit. But that was then, this is now. Okay, now the tight end position, those guys that are receiving entities, I don't even want to call them tight ends. Brock Bowers can block. Guess what? He can do that. And he will do it. He's got that great football attitude, that approach that, hey, I can slug it out. I can go and get the job done, and I can get dirty. I can get my hands dirty. I can do what I need to do, but I can also split defenders and be off to the races and outrace defensive backs to pay dirt. I can do all that. So I think when you look at where he belongs in this draft, he belongs somewhere in the top 10 guaranteed. Where does he belong on a ratings board? I think you can make an argument to Field, 3rd, 4th best player in this draft. And I look at the risk factor and what's the upside. He's got no risk factor, and he's got the ability in today's NFL, if he goes to the right team, and I think the Chargers would be ideal to maximize all that ability with Justin Herbert. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine him with Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert with the Chargers? I think, like I said, let's not even characterize him as a tight end. He's a receiving entity who can block.
So I don't think that the Combine can dramatically impact Brock Bowers in a negative way, Mel. I do think if he runs at the combine and runs very fast, like sometime in the some measurement in the 4.5s, that could only bolster the draft stock for Brock Bowers and kind of solidify him maybe ahead of either of those offensive tackles or potentially some of these wide receivers, depending on who is drafting and at which slot.